Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to the weekend edition of What's Happening in Space. Today, May 22nd, 2026 local time in Texas, or May the 23rd here in Australia, SpaceX carried out one of the most important rocket launches of the year with the 12th integrated test flight of Starship. But before today's successful launch, the mission faced multiple delays and scrub countdowns that kept engineers working around the clock at Starbase. The first launch attempt was originally scheduled for Tuesday, May the 20th, with a launch window opening at approximately 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. However, during the final stages of fueling, SpaceX teams detected a problem involving ground support equipment tied to the quick disconnect system used to load methane fuel into the rocket. With less than 40 minutes remaining in the countdown, launch controllers officially called off the attempt to allow technicians time to inspect the issue and ensure the safety of both the vehicle and launch infrastructure. A second launch opportunity was then targeted for Wednesday, May 21st. Once again, millions tuned in to the expected liftoff, but weather conditions quickly become a concern. High altitude wind shear and unstable upper level atmospheric conditions near the Texas coast pushed the rocket outside safe flight limits. As the countdown entered its final minutes, SpaceX placed the launch on hold several times while teams monitored weather data. Eventually, at approximately T minus 12 minutes, the company announced another scrub, delaying the mission for a second straight day. That set the stage for today's third attempt. At approximately 7:42 p.m. Central Daylight Time on May the 22nd, or 10:42 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on May 23rd, Starship finally lifted off from the SpaceX's Starbase facility near Boca Chica Beach. Crowds gathered along the coastline while millions more watched live online as the largest and most powerful rocket ever built prepared for launch. Towering roughly 123 metres tall and generating more thrust than the Saturn V moon rocket, Starship Flight 12 marked the debut of SpaceX's heavily upgraded version 3 spacecraft design. As the countdown reached zero, all 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster ignited almost simultaneously, producing an enormous fireball and shockwave beneath the launch mount. Moments later, Starship slowly climbed away from the pad before accelerating skyward over the Gulf of Mexico. The launch appeared smooth during the opening minutes of flight, with the massive booster performing normally as the rocket passed through max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic stress. At approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds after launch, Starship successfully completed stage separation. The Super Heavy booster detached from the upper stage spacecraft, flipping itself around to begin its return sequence while the upper stage Starship ignited its own engines and continued towards space. This mission was far more than just another test flight. Flight 12 was specifically designed to evaluate a long list of upgrades that SpaceX hopes will dramatically improve Starship's reliability and reusability. Engineers introduced redesigned fuel systems, updated avionics, improved thermal protection tiles, and upgraded Raptor engines intended to increase overall performance and durability. One of the biggest changes involved the spacecraft's heat shield. Thousands of thermal protection tiles had been redesigned or repositioned following lessons learned from previous flights. SpaceX also intentionally left several exposed areas on the ship to study how the vehicle behaves under extreme atmospheric heating conditions. A few minutes into ascent, viewers noticed a brief issue when one of Starship's engines shut down unexpectedly. However, the spacecraft continued climbing normally, with the remaining engines compensating for the loss, exactly as SpaceX engineers had designed the system to do. At around 20 minutes into the mission, Starship successfully deployed 22 experimental Starlink satellites into orbit. These included next-generation test satellites equipped with cameras and sensors intended to inspect Starship itself during flight and re-entry. Meanwhile, back near Texas, the giant Super Heavy booster completed its boost back burn and began descending towards the Gulf of Mexico. Unlike some earlier flights, SpaceX chose not to attempt a dramatic catch using the launch tower's giant mechanical arms. Instead, the company focused on collecting engineering data from the upgraded booster during a controlled splashdown. The upper stage of Starship then continued on a near global trajectory, travelling thousands of kilometres across the Atlantic Ocean, over Africa and towards the Indian Ocean. As the spacecraft approached re-entry, roughly 1 hour after launch, temperatures outside the vehicle climbed to approximately 1650 degrees Celsius. Plasma built up around the ship, creating the now famous glowing fireball effect that has become one of the defining visuals of the Starship program. Cameras on board the spacecraft transmitted dramatic footage as flames and superheated gases raced across the hull. Engineers were particularly interested in monitoring areas where heat shield tiles had been intentionally removed for testing. Despite the brutal conditions, Starship remained stable throughout most of the descent. Communication dropouts occurred periodically as ionized plasma surrounded the spacecraft, but telemetry continued to stream back intermittently to SpaceX's mission control. Eventually, Starship completed its planned descent profile before splashing down in the Indian Ocean in what SpaceX described as a successful conclusion to the mission. Although this was still considered an experimental test flight, today's mission demonstrated major progress for the program after several previous flights ended prematurely. The importance of Starship extends far beyond SpaceX alone. NASA is relying on a modified version of Starship to land astronauts on the moon as part of the Artemis program later this decade. At the same time, Elon Musk continues to describe Starship as the vehicle that could eventually carry humans to Mars. The rocket is also expected to play a major role in launching future Starlink internet satellites, deep space probes, and potentially even point-to-point travel around Earth in the future. For now, engineers will spend the coming days analysing enormous amounts of flight data gathered during today's mission. But one thing is already clear. After multiple delays, weather scrubs and technical hold-ups earlier this week, SpaceX finally achieved another major milestone in its effort to build a fully reusable launch system capable of transforming humanity's future in space. From a thunderous launch in Texas to a blazing re-entry over the Indian Ocean, Starship's Flight 12 delivered yet another dramatic chapter in the story of modern space exploration. And if today's mission is any indication, the next era of human spaceflight may be arriving faster than ever before. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of What's Happening in Space. Have a great weekend and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye for now.